Welcome back, guys. Hello. I hope everyone is doing well. We are already in week 7, which means we are on module 7. 7. I can't believe we only have one more week. You guys are doing so great. You're at the end of the trails. You guys are almost finished with this course, and I see you are learning so much along the way that you'll be able to utilize in your life after this class. So this week in Module 7, let's go ahead and look at our instructions for the week. And we are going to be reading chapter 13 and 14 in your textbook this week. And so you'll see here all the NAEYC standards. And once you've completed all the work I've assigned, these are the opportunities that you will have for this week. So to be successful in this module, you will need to watch the video. You will need to read chapter 13 and 14 of your textbook. Check out the PowerPoints as well that are indicated for you. The quizzes are on chapter 13 and 14. They are both worth 10 points each, and they are due the 31st, Friday the 31st. So make sure you complete them by that date. And then observation 3, peer review, is actually due by 7/28. So again, as you did the first two, you're going to find somebody to peer review your observation 3 paper utilizing the rubric that is in there for you. Okay, and then after that, you'll make corrections and submit your actual paper. So observation 3 is actually due on the 31st. So there will not be any discussion this week. I'm giving you plenty of time to observe the paper, your peer's paper, and submit your own. And then print up your study guide for utilizing for the final exam. So next week you'll be taking a final exam. I give you a study guide, and there are terms or key concepts or terms located in there that will cover the entire exam. Again, you're taking it from home, but it's nice to have that paper. I would make little notes on it. Make sure you know those key concepts. Okay, so let's go ahead and go back to the module. Okay, so here are your PowerPoints for chapter 13 and 14, and then your assignments. So you'll see your peer review is worth 10 points, 10 participation reports points, and it is due July 28th. And then your observation, after you receive that peer review back and you make your changes, you submit your final paper by July 31st. Okay, and then your videos this week, chapter 13 will cover legal and ethical dimensions of teaching, and then 14 covers teaching as a profession, responsibilities. Quizzes are under the quiz tab, 13 and 14. Here is your final study guide. Make sure you print that up and again, write notes on it. Make sure you're studying those key concepts. And then of course I have professional resources for chapter 13 and 14 that you can download. And then here is the option to send me any questions. So I wanted to go back and talk just a little bit about, I've taken some notes on chapter 13 and 14. Chapter 13 is going to discuss using documentation for child abuse suspicion and looking at self-concept. So this is a really important. Take your time reading over this. This is very important when working with young children. We are advocates for the young child, and there's certain things that we are mandated to do. So let's go over some using documentation for child abuse suspicions. So there's some key terms I want you to really look at. First one is neglect. Neglect is withholding of basic survival needs. Physical abuse is any non-accidental physical injury. And then sexual abuse is sexually explicit conduct with a minor. And then emotional maltreatment, definition, our book says it is psychological damage from blaming, belittling, or rejecting. Mandated reporters, which we are. Once you become a teacher, you're working in the classroom at any level, you are a mandated reporter. And we are individuals who, by law, must report suspicions of child abuse to specific agencies. And so that is the beginning of the chapter. And then responsibilities of early childhood professionals to prevent child abuse. So early childhood programs should employ an adequate number of qualified staff to work with children and to provide adequate supervision of program staff and volunteers. Second thing we should all do is the program environment should be designed to reduce the possibility of private, hidden locations in which abuse may occur. And lastly, all program staff, substitutes, and volunteers should receive an orientation and a refresher training at regular intervals. Every single year, you should have new trainings, and then you should also have a trainings in between if you feel them necessary. Also, centers and schools and homes should have clear policies and procedures for maintaining a safe, secure environment. Teachers and caregivers should be supervised by qualified personnel on an ongoing basis, and parents should be encouraged to spend time within the program. During normal time, obviously, during COVID, there's no parents allowed, but parents should be encouraged to come in and watch their child at all times. At any time, they should be able to drop in at any time. Programs should not institute no-touch policies to reduce the risk of abuse. That would be very difficult working with a young child because a lot of them they're touchy-feely. They like the hugs. Sometimes they like to sit on your lap. But you really have to be careful with what you're doing. And this is stating that you should not have a no-touch policy. Working with young children, touch is very, very important. And then physical and behavior indicators of abuse. There are reasonable cause to suspect the child's appearance. Behavior indicators, that's a big one, the child's description or disclosure, and then circumstantial evidence. So those are all indicators of abuse. Teachers as reporters. So teachers are more likely to report physical abuse than emotional abuse or neglect. Because why is that? Because we can see that more. This tendencies, you can see the bruises, you can see physical abuse more than you can see emotional or neglect. Teachers tend to delay reporting until they feel they have sufficient evidence, and you shouldn't do that. And you'll read about that. Boys are more frequently the subject of substantiated abuse. Lower socioeconomic groups are more likely to be reported. The quality of a relationship with the child and family influenced the willingness to report. For instance, I don't know about you, if you actually work in a school setting, or if you have observed as an educator, as a director, I'm very close to all my families, both the parents and the children. So what this is saying is sometimes that relationship, if it's too close, can hinder the willingness to report. So you have to make sure that you don't do that because, again, we are there for the children. And then male teachers are less tolerant of abuse and neglect and report more frequently. So male teachers report more frequently on average. And then let's see, also experienced teachers are more likely to report. Obviously, with more experience, you feel more confident reporting. Teachers' knowledge of indicators and reporting procedures were often inadequate. Fear of the negative consequences may prevent or delay reporting, and the role of the school principal is influential in reporting or not. And that should not be. If you feel there is any type of abuse, you should talk to your director, but you should actually report it. And then recording the indicators of maltreatment. You want to make sure you have really good record keeping for that. And then, of course, the next steps, which are there's either a hotline or a law enforcement agency that you need to call. And very important, do not discuss suspicions with the family or the child. You do not want to do that. Let's see, and then another really great thing that you're going to be learning about as well this week, and it's interesting, is diversity in child abuse. So different cultures have different norms, right? They have different abilities, so it's very important to know the culture of the children that you're serving. And then what to do with all your notes, and it says your notes, in our book it actually says you should have some kind of a policy of what exactly you need to do. You need to be confidential, and you need to give them information to your administrator, and you need to file an official report. And in your book, it's figure 12.4. It actually has a report there to show you. And then a copy should be kept along with the notes in a confidential file. This should not be, no one else should be able to read this. And then, of course, it has the advantages and disadvantages of using documentation for child abuse. And then looking at self-concept is the next item, and it's developing a self-concept. And self-concept is also looking at self-esteem and if a child has low, helpful or not, has low or high self-esteem. And families and schools can actually build self-esteem, race, ethnicity, and self-esteem. It talks about interdependence or independence, so make sure you read about that. And then there are developmental domains that self-esteem is revealed in, and they include separation. So is it hard for that child to separate from the parents? Self-care, physical, social, emotional, speech and language, memory and attention span, cognitive, creativity, literacy, and adjusting to a new setting. So those are all some development domains that you'll see when you are looking at self-esteem. And that wraps up chapter 13. Chapter 14, we're going to go ahead and dive into program assessments, which is very important. So reasons to assess a program include evaluate against the standard, assess program to its stated mission and philosophy, very important, because if you state it, this is your mission, this is your philosophy, you need to be able to be doing what you state you're doing. Receive feedback from your customers or your funders. So that's a good one as well, obviously. And assess program suitability for an individual child, and then provide measures of accountability. And then so families evaluate a program for goodness of fit of their needs. So the family is going to look at your program and under different categories to see if their child is going to strive in your program. And some of the fit qualifications include location. Obviously, that's a big one. Location, affordability. What is a curriculum? Philosophy, the class size, other children, the actual staff, are they educated, right? The environment, what are the policies? Does the schedule fit what they are looking for? Communication, how do we communicate with the families? Supplies, are they bringing in the supplies or is the school supplying them? Then of course word of mouth, giving the accolades, right? And then we go into program assessment. So total program assessments. There's several different things that our textbooks talk about. The first one, and I know you've heard me talk about this, is QRIS, which is Quality Rating and Improvement Systems. Very important and is a wonderful, wonderful accreditation system. So we'll learn a little bit about that. And then once you get into your higher classes, your admin classes, we dive in a little bit even deeper. But accreditation is important. There's NAEYC accreditation, there's NACCP program accreditation, NECPA program accreditation, and then there's family child care accreditation for those who have a home sitting family child care out of their home. And then school age program accreditation, which could be before or after school or actually school age, and then home visiting program accreditations. And then there are special focus instruments, ECHRS, ITERS, and so forth. There's high scope, that is federally funded schools, which is like Head Starts. And then there's Rosie, and then there's performing standards. But you will really hear a lot about QRIS, NAEYC accreditation, ECHRS, and ITERS in the classes that you take. And then staff performance assessments. CLASS, C-L-A-S-S, it stands for Classroom Assessment Scoring System. If you're a part of ECHRS, you're going to have, or QRIS, excuse me, for that quality rating of the whole program, CLASS is the portion that looks at the individual staff. And then ECHRS looks at the actual environment. So those are the two things that QRIS uses. There's also PAS, which is PAS, which is the Program Administration Scale, which assesses the directors of the program. So those are all things, again, that you'll be seeing later on in your 200 section of courses that we really dive deep into the